In this session, I'm going to talk about joining the tables and blending the data sources. Generally, joins are performed on different tables within a data source. Blending is performed on different kinds of data sources. How we do them in Tableau. So basically, both of them are to link the related data together. That is the major objective of either the joins or the blend. So if there are multiple data sources, I am doing a blending. The same data source, multiple tables within it, I am doing a joining. Right? So in joining, the relationship is between the tables. Any database that we are considering, every database will have multiple tables. And generally all these multiple tables are related in some way or the other, right? So just for example, if I am considering, let's say, a quick hospital database, okay, let's say I have a table for visits, wherein for each visit I am giving an ID, right? So whatever is the name of the patient, so I have a patient ID for that, right? Whosoever is the doctor, I have a doctor ID for it, and whatever is that kind of treatment that he has taken, I'll have a treatment ID for that, and whatever the date on which the visit was made, I'll capture the date and probably the type of the visit. Now these are some of the things probably I'll capture for every person who is visiting the hospital. Now similarly, for each patient, I may have a separate table, right? So I may call it as a patient table, which is the master of the patient. So probably I may have an ID for the patient, right? Probably the name, whatever it is, a few things, whatever is the city, whatever is his phone number, etc. Some patient related details, another table. Similarly, I may have another table regarding the doctors, the doctor ID, right? Whatever is the name, whatever is the specialization of that particular doctor, etc. Similarly, for every treatment, I can have a separate treatment ID, probably some kind of description, etc. So you can think of creating a database like this. Now in this database, each one is a separate table. So in many cases, I may want to join all these tables. So here the visit is like a primary table for me, which is captured on a regular basis. So there is a record of every patient, every treatment. So there is a mapping that this does probably to a patient in a patient database, in a patient table, to a doctor in a doctor table, to a treatment in a treatment table. Probably every time someone visits, okay, there will be a patient ID mandatory. There could be a doctor mandatorily, but there may or may not be any kind of a treatment. It could be purely for a visit. So probably this could be optional, or you can think of any such kind of a design, right? So it should be mandatory to visit the doctor, but may or may not have some kind of a treatment. Now the same thing if I am putting it in a Tableau, when I am importing this kind of a data or when I am connecting to this kind of a data source, I'll see 4 tables in Tableau, right? This is a primary table, and these 4 these 3 are the secondary kind of tables. Now here we have to talk about referential integrity. Referential integrity is nothing but, see, in the patient ID, this is the master record of the patient. This is the master record of the doctor. So here the ID is the ID associated with each patient, and probably this would be more and more unique. No two patients will have the same ID. No two doctors will have the same ID. But in this, the visit ID is unique, but the patient ID need not be unique. Patient ID here should pick from the patient ID here. Means this patient ID should be one of those IDs which are listed in the patient table. If that ID is not present in the patient table, it should not allow me to typically enter the visit. Probably it should first create a patient table, create a patient ID, and that patient ID needs to be assigned here. So which means the patient ID in the visit table is referring to that patient ID in the patient table. That is what we are calling as referential integrity. We are enforcing that in the visit table, the patient ID which is not present in the patient table cannot exist here. Similarly, the doctor ID which I am representing in the visit table, it should be mandatorily present in the doctor table. That is what we are ensuring as referential integrity. And many of the databases, the referential integrities are already defined while initially defining the design of the database itself. And when we are pulling the data from such kind of a database where the referential integrity has already been implemented, when you are pulling the data into Tableau also, Tableau takes care of that referential integrity and it creates the joins automatically based on the referential integrity. So if it is not defined in the database, the next thing what it does is it tries to match the names of the fields. So wherever the names of the fields are matching, it tries to join according to the names, right? So if the names are also not matching in the two tables, here it is PID, here also if I call it PID, then it tries to match both of them. But if the names are not there, then it gives us the flexibility where we can do the matching of the two tables within a data source. So that is what we can create, the joining between the typical different types of data fields. So what we can do probably in a Tableau when we are opening it, okay, let me take this out, right? So we have connected here, let's say, to the data source. Now there are so many tables here. There is a product table, there is a location table, and there is a fact table. Let me try that. Okay, query, let me take it out just for our understanding now. Let me put a fact table. So what is this fact table? This, if I consider it as a main table, because in the fact table there is a product ID, right? We are simply talking about 4248 records where there is a product ID, there is an area code, and for each product, each area, we are talking about what is the budgeted sales, what is the budgeted profit, what is the actual sales, actual profit, lot of things. So this is the fact table. Similarly, I can pull the location table here and I'll pull, let's say, the product table. Now what is that it is building here? In the location table, if we simply see, in the location table, right, without defining this, okay, I don't need location 1, right? If I simply look at the location table, it contains the details about the geographic location, right? It contains the details regarding the geographic location. So based on the area code, now if you look at the location table. Yeah, from here you are seeing the location table, area code, state, market size, right? These are there as a part of the location table. Similarly, as a part of the product table, I see product line, product type, right? Product code or whatever, the product name, product type. These are the different kinds of things that are there. Now, these are the joinings. So we have four types of joins here, right? So when we are talking about four types of joins, one, there could be an inner join, there could be a left join, there could be a right join, or there could be an outer join. So when we are joining, we can create these four types of joins. So depending on where the blue mark is, if the blue mark is in the middle, we call it as inner join. If the blue mark is to the left, we call it as a left join. The blue shading is to the right, we call it as a right join. And the blue shading, now if I click on it, you should see the blue shading is in the middle, left, right, nothing. So nothing is like your outer join. Right, these are the four types of joins that are there. Now, what is that we typically look at when we are joining? So at least the fact table is linked with, full join will be everything in blue, not nothing. Everything is in blue, then that is an outer join. Now, what is that we are simply saying? What do these four things mean? When I am doing, by default here, the fact table is linked with the location table with an inner join. Fact table with the product table also with an inner join. Whenever we are using inner join, the matching condition is only those records that are matching. So here you could see the matching is done based on the area code. So area code from the fact table, area code from the location table. Only when the area code is matching in both the tables, only those records are displayed. So if there is an area code in the fact table but not in the location table, or in the location table but not in the fact table, that records are not displayed. That is what is an inner join. The same logic holds even with the product table also. So only when that particular join field should be present in both the tables, only then the record is displayed, otherwise it is not. Whereas when I do a left join, it means if a particular field is present here but not here, right? If a particular field is present here but not here, then the ones which are on the left side, they are still displayed. So which means all the records of the left are displayed, whereas from the right, all of them, so from the data source, from the fact table, all will be displayed, but from the location table, for those where there is a matching of the area in the fact table, the values from the location table are displayed, but if they don't have, then it's a null that would be displayed for those values which are there in the left but are not present in the right. The same logic goes even with the right. All the records from the right are by default displayed, and whichever records are matching on the left, corresponding to them, the values will be pulled from the left table, but wherever there is no matching, I get the null values from the left table. And in some databases or data sources, this may not be enabled kind of stuff, then it would be disabled. And when we are talking of full outer kind of a join, then we are simply talking about the records are kept from both. All from the left, all from the right are displayed. So wherever there is a matching, both of them are shown in one single record. Wherever they are not matching, so depending on whether they are available in the left or in the right, only that portion of the data will be displayed and the remaining portion will be shown with null value. So depending on how our integration of the two data sources have to, of the two tables have to happen, we define the join condition accordingly. So between the two tables within a data source, we are creating either a left join, right join, inner join, or full outer kind of a join. So wherever it is mandatory that a particular join field should be present in both, then we talk about inner join. But where it is present in one, need not be in the other, then we can use a left join or a right join. Where it need not be present in either of them, then we can use a full outer join. So depending on the database and how we want to link the field, we'll use either one of these four kinds of joins. But the point is, Tableau offers a very good mechanism where we can join the different tables within a single data source. So when we are taking up our examples, we'll definitely go ahead in terms of joining our different tables, which will give us much more clarity in terms of understanding this join conditions and concepts quite in more detail. Right? Now comes the next aspect where we are doing the blending. Blending is associated more with the different data sources. Let's say I took some data from Excel and I took some data from Access and I want to combine these two data sources. So this is where we are doing more and more of a blending. Or probably it could be an Excel 1 and Excel 2. Two different Excel files, and I simply want to integrate between them, join between them. That is where we are using the concept of blending. It's a very powerful and an innovative feature in Tableau. So I'm using multiple data sources, bringing them into one single view on the screen. And I can combine different kinds of data sources together. And I can even do a comparison of the data at different level of detail altogether if I plan it out correctly. Let's have some more important points. The blending is done more and more at an aggregate level. It's not done at a table level. Data source level aggregation is being done. So there will be a separate query. Let's say query 1 goes to data source 1. Query 2 goes to data source 2. It's not a one single query. It's not a row level kind of aggregation. Right? In join, we are doing a row level aggregation. Right? Where we are trying to look at each record. So there is a single query to a single data source. So here we are looking at different queries to each source. So in this blending, we are not talking of one single step. There are multiple steps. A separate query is going to each of the data sources. So first we identify what is the primary data source. So the query first goes to this primary data source. So that primary data source returns the results. Then the queries start going one by one to the secondary data source. Right? Then another query goes to the secondary data source. Now there is a filtering that applies. Right? Based on the set of values that are retrieved by the primary data source, And based on the link between the two data sources, there is a kind of a filter that is applied. So the secondary data source now retrieves another set of results. Similarly, the steps 3 and 4, they keep iterating for all the data sources that I have typically used. So Tableau is blending the results of all these queries that get generated, right? And this is not joining. So in joining, we are only doing one single query and the results are matched row by row. Whereas here, source by source. Two separate queries, three separate queries, each query going to each data source, and after that, the aggregate results are blended. So I can have any number of data sources of different kinds of backgrounds, different types, all of them can be blended. So here what plays an important role is the linking field. On what field we are linking the two data sources. So those are exclusively the dimensions which are simply used to match the data between the primary and secondary data sources, right? Especially if there is a name match in both the data sources of the field, then there is a kind of automatic assignment between the data sources. Otherwise, I can think of a manual assignment of the relationship. We have once we have selected two data sources, within the data we have something called relationships, where I can edit the relationship between the two different data sources, and that is what will pull in the data from two different data sources. Let's do one simple example, right? If I take this, so this is the blending part, sorry, this is the joining part. Now let's say I pull in one more data source, right? That Excel data source, let me pull it, which is there as a part of my Tableau repository. I'll try to pull that Excel data source. Okay, sample superstore. Let's say I've pulled this. Now there are two data sources as a part of my overall. One, I have a sample superstore and I have a copy chain query. So these are the two different data sources that I have. Now here I have what is called as, right, I go into sheet 1. Within this, okay, right now I am at sample superstore. I go to this sample superstore. I can talk about edit relationship. Okay, here there is only one that is being shown, copy chain query. So it's better that I have to add. So the sample superstore did not get added correctly. So let me close the connection again. And again, let me add the data source. Okay, now looks like it got added well. Let me just come and check it. Okay, order copy chain. Now it's added well. So once I go to the data, I can go to edit relationships. Now it is showing this is my primary data source, order sample, and this is my secondary data source. So there are two different data sources that we are saying, and this is the relationship window. It is showing the displaying of the relationship between the two data sources. So it is saying state is a kind of linking between the two. Automatically it has found a field which is common to these two data sets, right? And it has simply mentioned a join based on the field. Of course, if you don't want automatic, you can very well go into the custom view as well. You can define your own linking between the two data sources, right? Now, whatever is the linking field that we are using, here the state is the linking field that we are using, it will be an active field by default. Whereas the others need not be active. Let's say if I'm saying okay, here we have now order chain as well as this. In copy chain, the state, this is the default, this is the field that is linked, and in order copy chain or in order sample also we have a field called state. That is what is the linking field between the two. Now we can very well change the things if required. So if we simply look at the relationship, we have linked between the copy chain. Okay, let me remove the extract data here, or let me remove the use extract. Okay, so we have the superstore, we have the copy chain. Now let's say this is, I go here, edit relationships, right? Right now there is a state which is the linking field, whereas, or I can even think of adding, let's say, market, because here also I have a market. Okay, here I don't have the market, right? Here I don't have the market, or I can use the state itself. Okay, so let's say the state is the linking field from both. Okay, so whether it is custom or automatic, this is the linking field that we are created. Now let's say, now if I am trying to pull the sales here, right, just trying to understand, now I am looking at the sales. Okay, this is the total sales. Now if you look at the top, the order is being shown with a blue tick mark, and if I come to the copy chain, now whatever is the linking, here it is showing a broken link. I simply click on it, there is a link that is built, and you are able to see a red orange colored kind of a tick mark here. So the copy chain is simply acting, the copy chain access database is actually working like a secondary data source, whereas the order sample is working like a primary data source. Right, the active fields, you can very well show whichever are the fields that you want onto the canvas. So let's say if I have got the sales measure, so it is aggregating the data both from the primary as well as from the secondary data sources. Now similarly, I can aggregate on any dimension, right? I can link state wise. So let's say if I am pulling the state now here, now I get for different kinds of sales across different products across the different state. So state is aggregated at the level of state, sorry, the sales are aggregated at the level of state, and you can have different kinds of blendings between the different data sources, where you can pull in the data from two different sources to create the final picture of the output. So the joinings and blendings are very much important for us to understand when we are taking the data from multiple sources, building up extraordinary visualizations from those kind of data. All right. So thanks a lot for listening to this session. Thank you very much.